We are now, as we have been doing in the previous 2 days, we're going to take on the essential fraud of a president who is not a president, but some kind of freak, Barack Obama. If we don't get Barack Obama out of office very soon, and there are 3 ways to get him out. 1, he runs scared in order not to go to prison, like Nixon did. Number 2, he's kicked out of office by Section 24, the 4th of the U.S. Constitution amendments. And in that case, he goes that way. The other way is a straight impeachment. If this bum is not out of office, you're not going to have a United States. So there is no basis for tolerating this president in the office of president now. The problem is, the issue is not made clear because we have a bunch of cowardly generations, not my generation. My generation is World War II. I'm one of the last survivors or active survivors of that period. And our other generations generally are cowards. They will never tell the truth. They will always mix things up and say, well, maybe it could be this or that sort of talk. As a result of that kind of talk, there's no decision is made which would save this nation from extinction. We're close to the end now. You're talking about September, October, you're talking about an already dead nation if no change of this type is made. So what we're going to do today, as we've been doing in sessions earlier this week on Wednesday evening, and that's recorded in an audio version. What we said yesterday on the Wednesday program, which we run, which was a scientific presentation with some special features included. What we're going to say today is recast that whole picture with essentials. The elimination of Obama from the presidency is the absolute precondition for the survival of the United States and for generally the human race. Because if he is allowed to remain in office, the chain reaction effect throughout the world will mean the greatest kill of human beings in all known history to date. If you want to be exterminated, keep him in office. Permit him to remain in office. The man is purely evil. Everything he represents is a lie. The problem is there are many other liars. They call themselves scientists. They specialize in lies. How to deal with that? Okay, what the problem here is that the key issue here is that people have adopted a policy called a second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics is a complete fraud. There is absolutely no truth to it. Now, this is easily demonstrated, actually, scientifically. There's no doubt anybody who believes in the second law of thermodynamics is mentally ill, whether they know it or not, whether they did it deliberately or not. Because the organization of the universe is against that assumption of a second law of thermodynamics. But this is used as a way of destroying humanity. I'll get to exactly what that means. But first of all, let's take the issue itself. The second law of thermodynamics presumes that there's a barrier in the universe such that there's always a deterioration in terms of the potential population density of people on the planet. That is an absolute lie. Anybody who believes in the second law of thermodynamics is incompetent. They flunked science or science flunked them, one of the two. There is no basis for tolerating or proving or permitting the fraudulent second law of thermodynamics from being introduced as a policy maker inside the United States or Europe or elsewhere, but the United States in particular. But that is the argument which is used for the so-called, what do you call it? You call it anything dirty, that's what it is. But it's the so-called second law of thermodynamics, which is behind the so-called green movement. The green movement is designed by certain people, and has been designed over many centuries, millennia even, to kill people. The motive for the killing is called the oligarchical principle. The key example of that officially in European history is located in the period of the reign of the king of Macedon, King Philip. Philip, during his reign, made an agreement with the Persian Empire. That agreement was the agreement to the second law of thermodynamics. In effect, it's called the oligarchical principle. The argument was this. The argument was that the oligarchical class must rule the world, and that the people who are not in the oligarchical class will be classed as cattle or some kind of animal. They will be reduced in numbers, they will be kept stupid, they will be prohibited from having access to scientific and related knowledge. The population will be regulated accordingly to fit what you can accommodate with a certain low level of technology. How large a population of the slaves can you maintain? And the point is, if you increase the productivity of the slaves through scientific or similar kinds of progress, then they will take over. If they're numerous and skilled, they will take over. Then what happens to the oligarchy? It was this agreement that's called the oligarchical principle. And the history of European civilization since that time, actually also since earlier times, has been based on that concept of the oligarchical principle. A typical example of this is the monetary system. If you believe in monetarism, you are believing in that principle of the oligarchical principle. It's a lie. The lie is the second law of thermodynamics in modern times. Anybody who believes in a traditional principle is actually stupid in science. Any scientist who approves it is either a liar or just plain ignorant or stupid. Because the evidence before us demonstrates that that is a lie. The policy that is driving the Obama administration is a mass murderous policy, which is a lie. Everything in the policy is a lie. Anybody who recites it with the university education, they're a liar. Maybe they're all stupid. That's probably their escape clause. That's what the danger is. You have it now, it's clear. Prince Philip of England says 2 billion people is the maximum allowed before. Now they've reduced it to 1 billion people that are allowed to live. The rest of you are going to be killed because you've got to fit a policy of world population of 1 billion people or less. You are supporting Obama? Who are you going to eat? Who are you going to kill? What about the people called professors, scientists, experts who support this policy? They're worse than Hitler, far worse than Hitler. Hitler was a junior league type for this crowd. Who is this? Who's behind it? The British Empire, the Queen of England. The President of the United States right now is an enemy of all humanity. He's a bigger enemy of humanity than Adolf Hitler was. If you support his policy, the green policy, you are supporting a Hitler policy against yourself. Now, this has been going on for a long time. Look at Africa. Africa is an area of permanent cannibalism by the British and others. And you support this policy? You tolerate this policy? You support a member of the Senate or member of the House of Representatives who supports this policy? Aren't you a mass murderer? An accomplice in mass murder against probably you even yourself and your neighbors? This is a lie. There's no truth for it. What's the truth? Well, it happens in the past approaching 1 billion years or so, there has been a study of life on Earth, all kinds of life, the evolution of life, the development of life forms, and so forth. And all this process of change in the nature of species existing on the planet, the change in the size of the population of animals, various kinds of vegetation, and so forth, and human beings. And human beings have only been around for a few million years in all this period. But throughout this period, there have been periodic mass kills of species of society or plant life, animal life, and so forth. Mass kills. But every mass kill is associated with the elimination of some species, but the emergence of species which are of a higher order than those which are killed. This is the principle. The universe is anti-entropic. There is no law, second law of thermodynamics. There's only an evil lie. That's the record. For example, we have the delightful myth about the people living in the so-called Stone Age or the ancient Stone Age, the great kills. But when they were killed, these animals which were killed were very inefficient animals relative to what replaced them later on. It wasn't one species for another that replaced the other. It was a general increase in what we call the energy flux density of the human and other species, plant species, other things. A constant increase of progress to higher forms of life with greater power than the species that had died out. Now, in all these cases, the changeover from a lower level of life existence to a higher form has usually depended upon a change in species. The inferior species died out, but they were replaced, not one for one, but in terms of total variety, they were replaced by higher orders of species, more developed, more productive. A general increase in the energy flux density of living processes on this planet. Not only are the species improved in net effect, but the energy flux density represented by this change is always continued. There has never been a period that corresponds to the idea of environmentalism. All environmentalism is a lie. It's a vicious lie whose consequence, when applied, is genocide. Now, Africa is typically an area of genocide. Who practices genocide in Africa? Well, first of all, the British. They're the principal means there of genocide. Who else does it? Well, others do it. The people who own Africa, who control the population, who control their conditions of life, who prevent the development of water systems, all of these kinds of things. There is deliberate genocide against Africa. And the particular significance of this is the fact that they're now bringing it to you. in Europe, and in the United States. Genocide is being brought against you. And you vote for a greenie? You tolerate a green policy? The fact of the matter is that the characteristics of living processes on this planet, and in the system, otherwise as we know the system as a whole, the solar system, and what we know of the processes in the galactic system, the galaxy of which we are part. These processes are always anti-entropic. That is, the energy flux density represented by each type of species is increased to a higher level. The direct opposite of the argument of the Green Movement. The Green Movement, if allowed to exist, will destroy much of the human race and send it backward. Anybody who supports the Green Movement is, in effect, either clinically insane or a criminal. The Green Movement is a crime. It is not a political movement. The basis is the oligarchical principle. The argument was, as in the case of King Macedon, King Philip of Macedon, and the Persian Empire, which made the agreement with him, was the areas around the Mediterranean at that time would be under the rule of the oligarchical principle, which means that the ordinary folk are going to be kept not too numerous and cheap and living miserable and frequently culled in their numbers. So there will be just enough people among the human beings as opposed to the oligarchs, just enough people to be convenient for the oligarchs. And the rest of them were superfluous. Kill them. Wars were organized as an aid to decimations of populations for the Green Movement of the past. Cultures were destroyed for the same purpose. And this is what is running the United States right now under Barack Obama. Barack Obama is a stooge for the British Empire. The British Empire is a continuation of the original Roman Empire, a continuation of the Byzantine Empire, of the Crusader system, and of the British Empire. The British Empire is not something that comes out of the Queen. The British Empire is a system, a monetarist system. The world is dominated by a monetarist system. Now, what's the meaning of a monetarist system? Well, a monetary unit has no intrinsic value, no intrinsic physical value, no value for humanity. It's simply an arbitrary instrument which came into existence as a product of a cult, which is called the oligarchical system. Prince Philip, no more than 2 billion people on the planet. Kill the rest of them. Keep bats in your belfry, what the British royal family does. Same thing all the way through. Same kind of thing. This is what our problem is. The problem is the suckers believe the stuff. Members of Congress, members of the Senate, other members of government, universities, science departments of universities believe in this crap. You get degrees for believing in this. Not much of a future, but degrees you get. You're buried wrapped in some kind of a symbol of the university degree, the parchment. You get a piece of parchment, and they wrap your corpse after suitably dried in parchment in order to regulate the size of the population. And you suckers believe it? You think this is science? You think because the guy is a professor at some university that he's a scientist? It's a freak show. He's a freak. He's out there costumed in various senses and ways. And you look at him, oh, there is a professor. They are all geniuses, aren't they? They know the secrets of the universe. They know this, things you don't know. They know. In order to be able to know what they know, you have to be a professor, become a professor in a certain university, and be emblazoned with all kinds of decorations called instruments and so on. And you are now admired. Oh, he's a professor. He knows. And that's the force. So we believe in this. Now what we've done, and we had to say there were 2 previous sessions of our organization which dealt with this problem. One, we had a meeting of the National Executive Committee early on Wednesday this week, and the record of that discussion exists as a video, as an audio production, available to you. We did a second piece yesterday in a video type of production of 1 hour and 2 minutes, which presents the argument for the case, and it also amplifies that. Sky did the one part of the thing. I did another part. And this young lady, so-called, did the other part. Alicia. And we presented 4 points, 4 different points on this. It's available to you. Use it. It's there. Sky did a brilliant job in his part on this one. It was just a very concise, effective presentation of a scientific argument on this question. I'm doing today. I'm trying not to tread on the area they covered because you'll have these things as a permanent record for you to consult as to what's going on here. But that's our problem. So therefore, we have to, in a sense, destroy everything that's tied to the Obama administration. The Obama administration is simply an agent of the British Empire. He's a British stooge. The corrupt money which brought him into office was provided largely by people from Britain. And they violated the law up and down in the way they financed Obama's election. He shouldn't be president. He should have been sort of impeached before coming into office. You know, pre-impeachment would be appropriate for his case. But the point is that we are imprisoned by people who control our destiny on the basis of what is called now a green policy. Germany, other countries of Europe are imprisoned by that. Mass genocide in parts of Africa, spreading genocide. Intended for other parts of the world, genocide. You vote for President Obama, support him, you're a promoter of genocide. You have no moral right to avoid impeaching this clown. Because if you don't impeach him and throw him out, you're not going to have people. You're going to have the worst dark age that mankind has ever experienced. And it's coming on right now, under his present term as president. And you've got a bunch of cowards called members of Congress and leading politicians who won't fight him, who won't oppose him, who won't throw him out. And every day you don't throw him out, you're putting your life and your whole family's life in danger. You're putting everything you know in danger. Every day he's there, more will unnecessarily die, murdered by the green policy. Because there won't be enough to eat. Already, in the United States today, we are not producing enough for Americans to eat. You can imagine what that's going to look like next January and so forth by that time. How many will you be dead of starvation? Because there's a vast gap in what's needed for human consumption and what's going to be available. Look what's happening in Africa now. The genocide in that corner of Africa. You tolerate this president, you're guilty of supporting and tolerating genocide. Not only genocide against other nations, but against yourself. So you come into a situation in which the welfare of the future of mankind depends upon people who have the guts to take this on and not fail to compromise with anything resembling the green policy. It's important to know that this is a fraud. It's important to say that this is a fraud. People will attack the policy, say, well, that's not fair. It doesn't do something for us. We need this, not that. All these petty, silly little arguments about minor things that don't mean anything in place of the fundamental question. As long as this president is president, you don't have a chance. Not chasing this president out of the presidency is an act of suicide. And that's what this proves. If you look at what we call the energy flux density of the various forms of life in the solar system, and we study that, we see that there's always this rise in energy flux density. That is the amount and concentration of power in the form of energy flux density. That's what it's based on. Higher energy flux density. Green is dead. Solar power is murder. Because take the case. Look at a little thing like solar power, the sunbeams. Now, you are familiar with them largely whether you've got a sunburn or something like that. That's one way. But you're also familiar with them as something else. You're familiar with them as green. You're familiar with them in our time as the solar radiation applied to plant growth on Earth increases the net effect of energy flux density. If you take the solar power, solar radiation, and you consume it as a power source, what's the effect? You do not get chlorophyll. And the generation for our time, for our human race's time, the generation on which progress depends is chlorophyll. The capture of radiation, solar radiation, into the form of the magic little creature called chlorophyll. And this little creature gives you not just something, they give you plants, otherwise you wouldn't have them. They give you trees, a special kind of plant. They give you a weather system on which you depend. It's all done for free by the solar radiation process. An anti-environmentalist, shall we say, system. If you're an environmentalist, well, you're asking to be killed. The solar radiation will kill you. It won't feed you, it'll kill you. Solar radiation impinging upon plant life, the real green, gives you the basis for much of the entirety of the possibility of human life on this planet. If you convert solar radiation into the solar power, solar cell power, instead of into the effects of benefits of green, then you're killing the human race. And that's what you're told. If we look at it from another standpoint, let's take the total amount of calories as measured in energy flux density from solar radiation and similar kinds of radiation. What's the effect of that? How does that work? And you look at then at living processes in general. Over the period that we know, say approximately about a billion years or so, something like that. What happens? Well, the planet Earth and the solar system increases its potential productivity for human life in direct and indirect ways. If you could convert it to the raw consumption of direct solar radiation, it'll kill you. Solar radiation used as it should be used increases the power of the human species. What we're doing now is killing the human species. Every windmill you see is killing people, not just birds. Every solar collector you see is killing people. When the measure of the potentiality of the human species is the increase of the power by the use of solar radiation and other forms of radiation to increase the power of mankind and the power of life. So when they talk about a second law of thermodynamics, they're lying. There's no truth to it. The truth of the matter is the possibility of the increase of conditions of human life or any other kind of life. The whole history that we know of it, of life in this solar system, is based on that principle. Take down the windmills, destroy the solar cells. May keep a few for exhibits, for helping to cook people. But that's what we're up against. And it's the failure of the lying scientists who tell you that these instruments are good. They're liars. They're not simply stupid. The same thing is true with the windmills. People who believe in windmills are stupid or liars. There is no such thing as a tendency toward a depletion of power, something we call energy flux density, on this planet. The history of living processes, the history of the solar system, says that the logical, natural tendency which rules the universe and rules our solar system in particular is a constant rise to the action, especially of life, the rise in what's called energy flux density. So there is no such thing as an attritional factor in human life on Earth. Mankind dominates this planet in a way that was never true before. Mankind is an active part. In other words, you don't have a universe or a solar system or an Earth which is using up something. Actually, human life on this system increases the productivity of the system. We are not a waste product unless we eat too much, which we have certain effects. We're not a waste product. We are an active, leading part of the universe in the part we live in. Mankind is a leading contributor to the conditions of life, of all kinds of life. Not every particular species, but all kinds of life. Now, this comes to the big question. What does this all mean? What it means is elementary. It means that we are an essential part of the universe. We are a leading part of the universe in the part we occupy. We are exemplary of processes which approach those of human species, the human species. We are a creative force. We're not something on the sidelines. We're integral to the creative forces of development within our part of the universe. We exemplify in what we're able to contribute. We exemplify those processes which dominate and run the universe. The universe is like that. So science should mean this. Everything else is a lie. But the lie has a function, an evil function. And the lie is to reduce the human population. Why? Because mankind's natural tendency is to make what we call discoveries in universal physical principle, or things equivalent to that. This is not something that man may or may not do. The very existence of mankind introduces this factor. We are the most important positive factor in the universe, at least as far as we know, in the territories we know. The human beings are the driver of progress. on this planet. The increase of energy flux density by the action of human beings is the leading force and factor in developing life on this planet. Why do we have to believe this crap? Because the enemy of mankind, the oligarchs, believe that they, as oligarchs, a tiny part of the whole population, have the right to control and exploit people. They believe that people are cattle whose only function is to be sufficient in their labor and numbers to provide the oligarchs with sustenance as oligarchs. And anything that gets in excess of that, they have to periodically clean out. Every mass base of genocide on this planet, of true genocide, that it's a willful practice of genocide by nations and by cultures, is based on the iron-green principle, on the principle of so-called environmentalism. Environmentalism is the greatest evil that we know on this planet. We give in to it, we're either stupid or evil ourselves. Then why would you support a politician who would vote the green ticket? You're voting for genocide. You're making Hitler look like a small-time biker compared to you. That's the case. Now, you know what people are saying out there. You know what you see in the press. You know what you see in the magazine. You know what comes out of the universities, out of the mouths or some other part of professors. You know this thing. And yet you consent to it. You consent to it either by supporting it, you consent to it by condoning it, you concede to it by saying, well, they made the laws. What's law then? Is it lawful to practice genocide against human beings? To practice genocide willfully against human beings? Is that lawful? What do you do with such a lawyer? What do you do with such a lawyer? You hang him as a criminal. He's no good. What do you do of a politician who supports green policies? Hanging around? This is a reality. We face the fact that the human species is being destroyed now by the green movement. That the green movement is a fraud. Every argument for the green movement is a fraud. It's a lie, and it's a murderous lie, a mass murderous lie. Why do you vote for a politician who supports that policy? Why do you tolerate a politician who supports that policy? You say you would like to get hands on Hitler, who's already dead, and kill him? Well, you've got something right worse. It's called the President of the United States. He's worse than Hitler. And people say, you can't say that about our president. Why not? He's a criminal. His actions are a crime. He's a threat to humanity. Why do you apologize for him? Why do you apologize for the politician? Why do you apologize for the press? Why do you apologize for people who spread this crap, which are killing our people? Killing civilization. And you were willing to accept the authority of a Congress which votes for this crap? How are you going to free yourself of death, mass death, if you don't stop this crap? If you don't stop supporting the so-called green movement, you have not got a chance, and the human race doesn't have a chance. So where's your morality? You say you have moral? What's your morality in its effect on humanity? What's your morality if you believe in the green movement? It's killing people already. It's killing them en masse already. Most of the people in this room will be dead in a short order unless this movement is stopped, the green movement. What's lacking? Honesty and courage. Honesty and courage. That's the problem before us. That simple. Anything contrary to that is a lie. Well, that's not the limit of the problem. Let's take the case of the solar system and our galaxy. The solar system is a part of the galaxy. It's a part, the wandering part inside the galaxy. It goes up and down and so forth in the whole territory. And the movement of these parts of the galaxy back and forth results in things called mass kills, great kills. The dinosaurs were killed out by such an operation. The only way it was killed. But then the universe, especially our galaxy, has a marvelous thing. It too increases the energy flux density in bodies in it. It grows. It grows like a living thing. What's the difference between an animal then and a man? Mankind makes the decision willfully. We are capable of increasing the energy flux density in the universe willfully. Now, the life just does it anyway. The universe does this anyway. The universe is always productive. The difference is that mankind is consciously productive. Mankind's discovery and knowledge of science is conscious action. And the rate of increase of productivity of mankind and productivity of everything in the system depends upon the creative powers which are uniquely specific to living human beings. Properly educated living human beings, of course. That is the secret of life. That's the secret of the universe. That we as mankind are a greater force for improvement of the universe than any other form of existence. We as human beings are the greatest force for good known to us today. There are lots of parts of the universe we don't know. But just to stick to what we do know, the neighborhood we know, mankind is the greatest creative force within the universe, as far as we know it. It's the creative powers of mankind, because we can, all forms of life, all forms of existence are creative. They all, in the process, when they die, for example, they'll die out, and they die out as being replaced by a higher form of living process, or higher form of existence generally, then they replace. It's not one-for-one replacement, but it's in general, the whole system is of that nature. The one thing that's great is the human species. Why? The human species is the miracle species. Every form of life other than mankind, for example, there are other considerations, but every form of life other than mankind is doomed to extinction in the cyclical process of development, of evolution of the universe. That's what we know. We know it immediately, and we adduce that for this system in large. Every form. Mankind is not only the most productive form in terms of rate of increase of productivity in the universe as we know it, but mankind is the only species which can continue to live among all the living species we know. See, in most cases, you look at the history, close to 98% of what we know having been living species are extinct. And yet in the process of extinction, the universe improves. Because each generation of creature does its job, then dies, and passes the torch on to the next species or the next series of species. That's the way it works. Mankind does not only do that with the most greatest efficiency and potential of all known living species, but mankind is the only species which is potentially capable of being an immortal species. That is a species which never dies. Now, this is conditional In principle, that's true. Mankind, in principle, is an immortal species. That doesn't mean we're going to live forever as individuals. It means the human species is capable of living forever if we do the right thing and don't do the wrong thing. Whereas there's no other living species which has a built-in capability as a species of surviving the upward evolution of the varieties of existence within the universe as we know it. We are the only immortal species. Now that's on the condition that we live up to that challenge. It means scientific progress. It means increase in the energy flux density of great orders of magnitude. It means an explosion of achievement whereby we are able to protect human life within this galaxy, within this region of the universe. We're capable of doing that if we do it and if we commit ourselves to it appropriately. We are the kings and queens of the universe, apparently. Or maybe there's some other species we don't know up there that share that dignity. But that's what we are. Now, this is the meaning of immortality, which is the proper principle for looking at this whole process. We are all going to die, probably. Maybe somebody comes up with an invention and changes that rule. But in the history of mankind so far, a few million years, that's all mankind has lived on this universe, this planet. But in this process, we become more powerful as a species. We become more creative. In being creative, we develop the means to ensure that we can survive the next great kill change. That we could have survived, for example, the dinosaurs who were wiped out in one big mass kill. We have the potentiality in what we call scientific and related progress to build a condition under which we are able to develop a system to protect and maintain human life in continuity under conditions which, for an animal species, otherwise would be dead. Now, how does this occur? This occurs by discoveries, like physical scientific discoveries of mankind. That's how this occurs. Therefore, we develop means, we might call them scientific instruments, other similar kinds of means, by which we are able to build protection for the human species. This power of protection comes from the inventions and similar kinds of progress in the conditions of existence of the human species. We can protect ourselves. We are more powerful. We have means that are more powerful. We can protect ourselves. And by building protection of ourselves, we can endure and tolerate conditions that mankind otherwise would never be able to tolerate. We are thus immortal. Through scientific exploration, through scientific migrations, and similar kinds of things, we are capable of expanding the role of mankind more broadly in the galaxy and in the system. Mankind is an immortal species in which the discoveries of new great principles, like scientific principles, means that mankind is unable to protect itself against conditions which would otherwise be the kind of great kills which wipe out entire species. That's us. But that's not for the oligarchs. The oligarchs say if we can do that, we human beings can do that, we don't need the oligarchs anymore. And we never did. It's the overcoming of the destruction of the system of oligarchism, which is typified by the Queen of England, typified by the piece of trash called Obama. That is the issue. Not merely to save mankind, to protect mankind, to improve the conditions of life, but on the conception that mankind has some kind of a special gift from the universe, that mankind is a species which has a higher destiny than any other known living species to us today. That destiny is ours. It belongs to us, provided we live up to what we are, human creative beings. It belongs to us. Somewhere in this process, in our development of discoveries of great scientific principle, we developed the means by which not only to preserve the human species, where no other known species to us could be preserved, but we have a mission, a divine mission in the universe, to be the power, the growing power within the universe, which is capable of doing other great things for the improvement of the universe as such. That should be our self-conception. That's the immortality of the person. Right? You take a stake as a scientist who makes a great discovery. He dies. The great discovery lives on as a permanent benefit built into the system. It leads as a foundation for the development of still higher states of development of humanity. So mankind is of a type of species which is in principle immortal in potential. We live in the service of the universe as a willful creative force within the service of the universe. That's us. Therefore, we are immortal, not because we might live forever, but because the effect of what we do as human beings will live forever. We are among the assigned authors of the improvement of the universe, to whatever purpose we find landing in our laps. We are a sacred species because we have the power of immortality made available to us and into our hands by these means. Now, that was the tendency when people left Europe and came to New England. That was the intention, is to take the natural potential of mankind, as already developed, and transport it away from a place where it would be crushed, into a place where it was intended to be expressed. The Massachusetts Bay Colony became the symbol of that. Then with William of Orange's accession to power, which is the beginning of the British Empire, we were crushed in Massachusetts. But the principle was maintained. It was expressed then in our Constitution. If you understand our Constitution, that's what was expressed there. The sense of humanity, a moral sense of an immortal species. Not immortal because it's sitting there being immortal, but because its activity, its contribution to the condition of mankind is of the quality of willful immortality. A purpose for mankind, a destiny for mankind, which is conditional on the willingness of mankind to adopt that destiny and practice it. Can you think of yourself as being a part of a species that just plain dies without any change and improvement in what you're able to do? Can you be satisfied and pleased with that? Can you be pleased with the idea that the species that you represent is going to suddenly become extinct? Can you like that? Can you work to that end? Or would you be despairing? But the fact is, as scientific progress has enabled us to demonstrate this as an exemplary way at least, if not a perfect way, we have a divine intention for our existence, which is the maintenance and improvement of the universe. We're now modest in our skills, but the principle is there. The principle of those who've gone before us in the great achievements of mankind have done the same thing, served that same principle. So it's not merely a matter of avoiding bad things, which the Obama administration is, very bad, which ought to be eliminated immediately. We have various instruments to do it, as I said. There's 3 ways we can get rid of him, and quickly. And it must be done quickly. How will we do it? We crush his power. We take the instruments of power out of his hand by getting our citizens to take their legal right to create laws which take the power out of the hands of these pigs. That's what we must do. We must do it with a sense of a divine mission. That we are a unique species insofar as we know what we are. We are an immortal species of mortal people. Our immortality lies in what we discover and contribute to the future of mankind. That is made evident to us just by what we experience. It made evident to us that's our assigned mission, because that's the possibility before us. That's the challenge before us. We're all going to die, so what's the purpose of our living? Are you just something like a bug that just happens to live and then dies? Is that what you are? Is that what you wish to be? Or do you not recognize that we as human beings have the power of creativity as no other known species known to us presently has? And any species that has the same power anywhere in the universe that we discover has implicitly the same divine mission that we as human beings have. We never die. The effect of our living lives on, if we live that way. It's that conviction that gives us the power, the will, and the joy to be a human being. That's the basis for the true sense of citizenship of a person in our nation. This is us. This is the meaning of our existence. This is our purpose for existing. This is our rejoicing in the fact that we exist, that we make children, we make other human beings, to continue and to improve in this same direction. That's what we must fight for, not bickering about this point and that law, but a matter of principle. Are we realizing the divinity inherent in the special quality of mankind as not known to us presently in any other species presently known to us? That's our intention. That's the meaning of life. If you're going to die, and we all must expect to die now, then what do you have? You have the intention of your effect in the universe. You are creating an effect which is immortal. Therefore, you are immortal. You are a member of an immortal species. And you have the power and authority which goes with that, implicitly. The universe has pointed it out to you. Experience has pointed it out to you. That's your power, that's your authority. That's your joy. That's your pleasure in being human, of being alive, in having a special kind of immortality, that your life will always mean something to humanity. In practice, if not in knowledge. But you will be able to know that your life has an immortal meaning. That's the basis for our republic. That's the basis for our proper policy. That's the basis for our proper law. This other stuff is crap. It's a great lie put upon us by evil called the oligarchical principle. The oligarchical principle embodied in the British monarchy. The oligarchical principle embodied in Barack Obama. Are you going to fight for humanity? Are you going to defend humanity? Are you going to defend the idea of an immortal species as mankind? Not excluding the fact there may be other immortal species somewhere in this universe. That's a challenge. And I think without that concept and without that challenge, I don't believe there is any possibility of true morality. That's what's not been said. Only saying that and understanding that, adhering to that, acquiring the confidence that represents, acquiring the intention that that implies, that is what it is to be a human being. And by asserting that law, we are asserting the role of humanity as qualifying itself as an immortal species. That's what you have to put counter to this crime called Obama. Thank you.